Commander Vexnar stood on the bridge of the warship Eternal Shadow and watched the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. Earth. The humans called it Earth, such a simple name for what would soon become the newest territory of the Krellin Empire. "Status report," Vexnar ordered, his gray skin tight across his angular face. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of anticipation among his people. "All systems ready, Commander," his weapons officer replied. "The humans have detected our fleet. They are mobilizing their military forces." Vexnar made a sound that passed for laughter among the Krellins. It was a dry, clicking noise. "Let them mobilize. What can they possibly do against us? We have conquered 47 species across 3 galaxies." The Krellin Empire had studied humans for 2 of their solar cycles. They knew about human weapons, ships, and governments. The Krellins were not impressed. Human technology was at least 300 years behind Krellin standards. "Commander," the science officer spoke up. Her name was Thera, and she was known for being careful. "I must remind you of certain concerns in the biological reports." "What concerns?" "The humans have a unique response to danger and stress. They call it the adrenaline response. Our biologists recommend caution." "Caution?" Vexnar's voice carried annoyance. "We have the finest soldiers in the known universe. Why should we fear a chemical reaction?" Thera pulled up data on her console. "The adrenaline response triggers remarkable changes. Human strength increases dramatically. Pain tolerance becomes extreme. Reaction times accelerate. Fear diminishes to almost nothing." "Every species has some form of stress response," Vexnar said dismissively. "With respect, Commander, the human version is different. It is more intense than anything we have recorded, and humans can trigger this response voluntarily. They seem to enjoy it." Vexnar made another clicking laugh. "Begin the invasion. We will take their major cities within 3 planetary rotations." The invasion began as planned. Krellin dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like metal rain. Human military bases were destroyed from orbit. Human aircraft were shot down before they could engage. Within hours, Krellin ground forces were landing. Private First Class Maria Santos was in the ruins of a shopping mall in Denver when the aliens found her unit. She was 23 years old and had never seen real combat before today. Now she had seen her sergeant die. She had seen half her squad die. She was hiding behind a broken concrete pillar with 4 other survivors. "What do we do?" Private Chen whispered. He was shaking so badly that his rifle rattled. Maria peeked around the pillar. She could see the aliens moving through the rubble. They were tall, thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. There were at least 20 of them. "Our weapons can't hurt them," Private Johnson said. His voice was flat, defeated. Maria's heart was pounding. Her hands were sweating. She recognized what was happening, the fight-or-flight response, adrenaline flooding her system, every instinct screaming at her to run. But there was nowhere to run. The aliens had sealed off this sector. Something shifted in Maria's mind. It was not a conscious decision. It was something older, something deeper. If she was going to die, she was not going to die hiding. She was going to die fighting. She felt her fear begin to fade. In its place came something hot and fierce. Her hands stopped shaking. Her breathing steadied. Her vision sharpened until she could see every gap in the aliens' formation. "Listen to me," Maria said, and her voice was calm now. "Our bullets can't penetrate their armor, but they have joints. They have eyes, they have gaps, and they're not expecting us to fight back." "We are beaten," Johnson said. "No, we're not beaten until we decide we're beaten." She pulled a grenade from her vest. "When I throw this, you run at them, not away, at them, get close. Their weapons are long range, up close they're vulnerable." "That's insane," Chen said. Maria smiled. "That's why it might work." She threw the grenade. It arced through the air. The aliens saw it coming. One of them shot an energy beam at it. The grenade exploded. It did not hurt the aliens, but it created dust, smoke, confusion. And in that moment, 5 humans charged. The aliens were not prepared. Their tactical programming was based on logic. Rational beings did not charge superior forces. Rational beings did not run toward death. Maria reached the first alien before it could adjust its weapon. She drove her combat knife into the gap between its helmet and chest armor. Gray blood sprayed across her face. Around her, the other survivors were fighting with desperate fury. Chen tackled an alien twice his size. Johnson used an alien weapon as a club. Private Walsh was strangling an alien with her bare hands. The aliens began to retreat, not because they were losing. They still outnumbered the humans 4-1, but they were confused. Their training had not covered enemies who should be beaten but refused to accept it. Commander Vexnar watched the footage from the Denver engagement with growing unease. Similar reports were coming in from all over the planet. Everywhere his forces engaged humans in close combat, the same pattern emerged. The humans fought with ferocity that made no tactical sense. "What is happening to them?" he demanded. Thera pulled up the biological data. "The adrenaline response, Commander. When humans perceive extreme danger, their bodies undergo dramatic transformation. Pain is suppressed. Strength increases. Fear is eliminated." "Our soldiers are beginning to report something," she continued. "They are becoming afraid." "Afraid? Krellin soldiers do not feel fear. We bred it out of our species." "Apparently, it is returning. The human behavior is triggering something in our soldiers. They are seeing enemies who do not respond to pain, who attack when they should flee. It is unsettling them." Vexnar stared at the screen. The Krellins were still winning technically, but the humans were not surrendering. They were fighting and dying and fighting some more. And somewhere deep in Vexnar's brain, something stirred. Something that felt very much like worry. The war had been going on for 3 weeks. By Krellin standards, it should have been over in 3 days. Instead, the humans had adapted. Sergeant James Cooper led his squad through the ruins of downtown Chicago. The city was a wasteland now, but the aliens did not control it. Not really. They held the intersections during the day, but at night, the city belonged to the resistance. Cooper had been a mechanic before the invasion. Now he was a soldier like everyone else still alive. His squad was a mix of former soldiers and regular people. There was Rodriguez, a former teacher, Kim, a former nurse, Old Man Patterson, 67 with bad knees, and Maya, 16 years old, who carried a stolen alien rifle almost as big as she was. "Movement ahead," Kim whispered. 4 of them, standard patrol pattern. Cooper studied the aliens. They moved with mechanical precision. 3 weeks ago, that would have terrified him. Now it just looked like a weakness. "They never change their patterns," Rodriguez muttered. "They don't know how," Cooper said. "Their systems are based on logic. They can't adapt to things that don't make logical sense." The resistance had discovered something important. The Krellins had eliminated conflict within their species through genetic engineering. They had removed aggression, fear, and irrational impulses. That had made them powerful, but it had also made them predictable. "I'll take point," Cooper said. "Rodriguez and Kim, circle around to the east. Patterson, stay here with Maya and provide covering fire if things go bad." "Things always go bad," Patterson said with a grim smile. "That's kind of our strategy." Cooper moved through the rubble. His heart was pounding. His hands were tingling. The adrenaline was kicking in. He reached a position behind a burned-out car, 30 feet from the alien patrol. He took a deep breath. He felt the fear rise up, felt it trying to make him run. And then he pushed it down, into the dark place where he kept all the other feelings he could not afford. He attacked. The first alien never saw him. Cooper's knife found the gap in its armor. The second alien turned, raising its weapon, but Cooper was too close. The weapon's minimum range was 15 feet and Cooper was at 5. In less than 30 seconds it was over. 4 aliens dead. No human casualties. That was clean, Kim said. Too clean, they should have seen us coming. Their systems detect threats at range, Cooper said. They're not looking for enemies who want to get close. Maya spoke up. My brother was a Marine. He told me about the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. The key to winning is to get inside your enemy's OODA loop. Cooper nodded. The Krellins have a perfect OODA loop, but it's all based on logic. Every time we do something illogical, their loop has to restart from scratch. He looked at his squad. A teacher, a nurse, an old man, and a teenager. None of them should have been a threat to the most powerful military force in 3 galaxies. But they were, because they were human. On the Eternal Shadow, Commander Vexnar reviewed the latest casualty reports with desperation. The numbers made no sense. His forces still held all strategic positions. They still controlled the skis. And yet they were losing soldiers, not in hundreds, in thousands, every day. How are we losing more soldiers to close combat than to all other causes combined? He demanded. Admiral Kren shifted uncomfortably. The humans refuse to engage at range. They constantly seek close combat. Then adjust tactics. Issue close combat weapons. Train our soldiers in hand-to-hand fighting. There was a long silence. Admiral Kren and Thera exchanged looks. Commander, Thera finally said, we have tried. Our soldiers cannot adapt to close combat. Their psychological conditioning prevents them from functioning effectively at close range. Why not? Close combat requires the ability to function under extreme stress, to continue fighting while experiencing pain and fear, to make rapid decisions without complete information. These capabilities were bred out of our species. They panic, Admiral Kren said bluntly. They freeze. The humans are triggering fear responses that should not exist in Krellin physiology. Fear should not exist in Krellin physiology, Vexnar said. We thought we eliminated it, Thera said, but we only suppressed it. The human behavior is so far outside our models that our soldiers' brains are reacting as if to a completely unknown threat, and the only response to an unknown threat is fear. Vexnar was quiet for a long moment. Thera, what is happening to us? Thera pulled up new data. When humans enter fight or flight mode, their physiology changes dramatically. Pain receptors are suppressed. Fear responses are overridden. But most importantly, their behavior becomes unpredictable. Unpredictable how? They stop making rational decisions. They make emotional decisions. Decisions based on rage, on desperation, on love for their fellow humans. These decisions cannot be modeled. They cannot be predicted. She looked directly at Vexnar. We did not fear the thing we should have feared. We did not fear their adrenaline. Vexnar realized the Krellin Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had come expecting to conquer a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and terrible. We need to reconsider our strategy, Vexnar said slowly. We need to reconsider everything. 3 months into the invasion, the resistance had grown. What had started as scattered survivors had become an organized movement. General Chen Wei commanded the resistance forces in what had been China. She was 61 years old and had been retired from the military for 5 years when the invasion began. Her command center was underground, in tunnels originally built as a nuclear shelter. The aliens had never found it. Their scanning technology was designed to find technology, not holes in the ground. General, we have a new report, her aide said, handing her a paper document. Paper. They had gone back to paper because the aliens could intercept electronic communications. She read the report. Another successful ambush. 12 alien soldiers killed, no human casualties. The aliens are changing their tactics, she observed. They're becoming more cautious, moving in larger groups, avoiding urban areas. They're learning, her aide said. No, learning would mean adapting. What they're doing is retreating to a safer position while they try to figure out what's happening. The human strategy had evolved over 3 months. The key insight was that the Krellans were psychologically different. Their civilization was built on logic, order, and predictability. They had conquered 47 species because those species had all fought rationally. Humans were different. Humans were chaotic, emotional, unpredictable, and that chaos was their greatest weapon. The aliens' biggest advantage is long-range weapons and orbital support, General Chen said. Their biggest disadvantage is close combat. Our strategy is simple: deny them their advantages and exploit their disadvantages. How do we deny them orbital support? We don't engage in open terrain. We fight in cities, in tunnels, in forests, anywhere they can't use orbital weapons without destroying their own troops. In close combat, General Chen's expression hardened. We train every human to fight at close range, every man, woman, and child. We learn their armor's weak points. We learn how to trigger their panic responses. We make them fear us. Colonel Rodriguez spoke up. General, the Krellans are starting to call it human madness. Their soldiers are becoming afraid to engage us up close. Good, the more they fear us, the less effective they become. But what's the end game? They have an entire empire behind them. General Chen was quiet. Then she said, the end game is to make this invasion so costly that they decide we're not worth the trouble. Every empire has limits. We're going to be that enemy. She looked around at her officers. All of them had lost family. All of them had seen horrors, and all of them were still fighting. The Krellans thought we would be easy. They studied our weapons and found them primitive, but they forgot to study what humans do when we're cornered, when we're desperate, when we have nothing left to lose. On the Eternal Shadow, Commander Vexnar faced a crisis. Not just military, psychological. His soldiers were breaking down. The reports were disturbing. Krellan soldiers who had fought bravely in a dozen campaigns were refusing to enter combat against humans. Officers were experiencing anxiety, paranoia, and something the medical officers called fear. And there were nightmares. Krellan soldiers did not dream. Their sleep cycles had been optimized. But now, soldiers who had fought humans were experiencing vivid dreams. Dreams of close combat. Dreams of human faces twisted with rage. Dreams of being hunted by creatures that did not respond to pain or reason. This is unprecedented, the chief medical officer reported. We are seeing psychological breakdowns at a rate 1,000 times higher than any previous campaign. Apparently we didn't eliminate battle madness, Vexnar said. We just buried it, and the humans are digging it up. After 3 months, the Krellans controlled most of Earth's surface officially. But in practice, they controlled very little. Every city was a battleground. Every forest was a death trap. Every night brought new attacks. Commander, Thera said, I understand why the human response is so effective. It is not just physical. It is psychological transformation. When humans enter this state, they become a different kind of being. A being that does not feel pain normally. That does not fear death normally. That experiences combat as something approaching joy. She paused. The humans have a word for this. They call it battle rage, and it is something we are not equipped to handle. Vexnar stared at the tactical display. We created the Krellan species through genetic engineering. We eliminated aggression because we saw it as a flaw. We eliminated fear because it was inefficient. We believed we were creating a superior form of life. He looked at the endless small battles across Earth's surface. But we were wrong. We created a form of life that cannot handle beings who kept their flaws. Beings who channel aggression and fear into a response so powerful that it breaks our soldiers' minds. He made a decision. Order all forces to fall back to defensive positions. No more offensive operations. We hold what we have and wait for guidance from the High Council. This situation has gone beyond my ability to handle. It was an admission of failure, something a Krellin commander should never make. But Vexnar no longer cared about should. The humans had found a weakness in the Krellin species that no one had known existed. They had found a way to make the Krellins feel fear. 6 months into the invasion, the High Council of the Krellin Empire convened for an emergency session. It was the first such session in 300 years. High Counselor Vorn presided. He was nearly 400 years old and had seen the rise of the Empire. He had never seen anything like the reports from Earth. "Commander Vexnar, present your assessment," Vorn ordered. Vexnar stood before the council. "High Counselor, the invasion of Earth has failed. Not militarily. We still possess superior technology, but we are losing the war." "Explain." "The humans exploit a fundamental weakness in our species. They engage us in close combat. They behave in ways our systems cannot predict. And when they fight, they undergo a transformation that makes them immune to pain and fear." He paused. "Our soldiers are breaking down. We have lost more troops to psychological collapse than to enemy action. The humans are not just killing us. They are destroying us from within." On the screens around the room, footage played. Humans charging Krellin positions, screaming, bleeding, dying, and taking Krellins with them. Humans fighting with wounds that should have killed them. Humans laughing as they fought. "You are suggesting that we cannot win?" one counselor asked. "I am suggesting that winning may cost more than it is worth. Earth has no strategic resources we cannot obtain elsewhere. The only reason we invaded was because humans should have been easy to conquer. We were catastrophically wrong." High Counselor Vorn was quiet for a long time. In 4,000 years, the Krellin Empire has never retreated from a conquest. We have always prevailed because we are more intelligent, more rational, more disciplined. He looked at the footage. But the humans are not fighting with intelligence or rationality. They are fighting with something we eliminated from ourselves long ago, something we no longer understand. He turned to Vexnar. "What do you recommend?" "I recommend complete withdrawal from Earth. We declare it a quarantine zone and never return." "Never." "Never. The humans are not a threat as long as we leave them alone. Their technology is too primitive to reach our territories for at least another 1,000 years. But right now, they are the most dangerous enemy we have ever encountered. Not because of what they can do to us, but because of what they make us become." He looked around the chamber. "When we fight humans, we stop being Krellin. Their chaos infects us. Their fear becomes our fear. If we continue this war, we may win eventually, but we will no longer be ourselves." The council debated for 3 days, the longest debate in Krellin history. In the end, the decision was made not by logic, but by something closer to instinct, something that should not have existed after thousands of generations of careful breeding. The Krellin Empire withdrew from Earth. 1 year after the invasion began, the last Krellin ship left Earth's orbit. The planet's surface was scarred with war. Cities lay in ruins. Millions of humans had died. The survivors faced a long recovery. But they were free. General Chen Wei stood on the steps of what had been the United Nations building in New York. It was mostly rubble now, but a section had been cleared for the ceremony. Representatives from every surviving nation were present, along with thousands of ordinary people. "1 year ago," General Chen said, "an empire that had conquered 47 species came to our world. They had better weapons, better ships, better technology. They should have won. By every rational measure, we should have been just another conquest." She paused, "But we were not rational, and that saved us." Behind her, a screen showed images from the war. Human soldiers charging alien positions. human civilians fighting with improvised weapons, human doctors treating wounded fighters and sending them back into battle. The Krellans bred themselves for logic and order. They eliminated fear, anger, and irrational action. They thought they were making themselves superior. Instead, they made themselves vulnerable to an enemy who could channel those feelings into something they had no defense against. She raised her hand, and the crowd went silent. The Krellans have declared Earth a quarantine zone. They will not return. They have told other species that we are too dangerous to engage. They have warned everyone in 3 galaxies to stay away from the primitive, irrational, terrifying species that calls this planet home. Her smile widened. I think that's the greatest compliment we have ever received. The crowd erupted in cheers. A year of fear and death was finally over. Humanity had faced the most powerful empire in the known universe and survived, not through superior technology, through sheer, stubborn, irrational refusal to accept defeat. Through being human. Sergeant James Cooper stood in the crowd with his squad, Rodriguez, Kim, Patterson, and Maya. They had fought together for a year. They had lost friends, family, everything they knew. And they had won. What happens now? Maya asked. She was 17 now, a year older and a lifetime wiser. The aliens had a name for her in their records. They called her the Small Demon. Now we rebuild, Cooper said, and we remember. Remember what? Cooper looked up at the sky, where the stars were visible even in the afternoon light. We remember what we are. We remember that when we're pushed to the edge, we become something the universe has never seen before, something that can't be calculated or predicted, something that fights not because it expects to win, but because fighting is what it does. He put his hand on Maya's shoulder. We're not the most advanced species in the universe, but we might be the most dangerous, and now everyone knows it. High above Earth, monitoring satellites continued to watch. They would watch for 1,000 years, recording everything. The data would be transmitted to the Krellan homeworld, where scientists would study it endlessly, trying to understand how a primitive species had defeated them. They would never fully understand, because understanding would require them to feel what humans feel, to experience the adrenaline that transforms fear into rage and desperation into power. In the centuries that followed, the story of the Human-Krellan War would spread across 3 galaxies. Other species would hear about the primitive world that had repelled the Empire. They would hear about the chemical response that transformed humans into unstoppable fighters. And they would be afraid. Not of human weapons, which remained primitive. Not of human technology, which advanced slowly. Not of human ships, which were still too slow to reach alien worlds. They would be afraid of the humans themselves, of what they could become when pushed, of the ancient, primal thing that lived inside every human being, waiting to be awakened. They would be afraid of the adrenaline. And that fear would keep Earth safe for a very, very long time. On the steps of the ruined United Nations building, General Chen Wei finished her speech. The crowd dispersed, returning to the work of rebuilding. The war was over. The enemy had fled. Humanity had survived. And somewhere deep in the genetic code of every human being, the fight-or-flight response waited. It had saved them once. It would save them again if needed. The Krellans had called it human madness. Other species would call it the terror response, or the death wish, or simply the thing that makes humans dangerous. Humans just called it adrenaline, and they were very grateful for it. The sun set over a broken but undefeated Earth. Tomorrow the rebuilding would begin. But tonight humanity celebrated. They celebrated survival. They celebrated freedom. They celebrated the simple, irrational, wonderful fact that they were still alive. They had faced the darkness of space and found monsters waiting there. But in the end, the monsters had discovered that humans were the scarier species, not because of what they built or invented, because of what they were. because of what they could become, because of the fire that burned in their blood when everything seemed lost. The stars watched and the stars remembered. The humans had won, and the galaxy would never be quite the same.